The sky above the colony world of Harvest Prime did not turn black with ships. That would have implied a battle. That would have implied a chance. Instead, the sky turned a violent, bruised purple, the color of a dying bruise on the skin of the universe. The Zygnar ascendancy did not invade. They did not conquer. They simply sanitized. From the surface, the 3 million human colonists looked up, shielding their eyes not from the sun, but from the lance of Trazyn, a focused beam of high-energy plasma that bored through the atmosphere, ignited the oxygen, and turned the tectonic plates into molten slag. There was no negotiation. There was no demand for surrender. The Zygnar viewed humanity not as a rival, but as an infestation. A mold growing on a rock that was strategically located near a hyperspace lane they wished to secure. The High Exarch Vrak watched the burning of the world from the bridge of his dreadnought, the Eternal Dominion *. He sipped a nutrient slurry, bored. To him, the screams of millions were not tragic. They were irrelevant. He turned to his communications officer, a spindly creature with multifaceted eyes, and gave a lazy order. Send a message to their home world. Tell them this territory is now ascendancy property. Tell them if they venture past the Uit cloud again, we will treat their cradle world the same way we treated this outpost. The message was sent. The Eternal Dominion * jumped away, leaving behind a glass marble radiating heat into the cold void. The Zygnar Empire, spanning 1,000 systems, moved on. They had crushed 1,000 species before. This hairless, soft-skinned race called humanity was merely a footnote in the grand ledger of their conquest. They expected a retaliation, perhaps a feudal fleet of primitive kinetic weapon ships that would be vaporized by their shields. They expected begging. They expected diplomatic envoys pleading for mercy. Instead, they got silence. 1 year passed, then 5, then 10. The Zygnar intelligence networks monitored the Sol system. They saw the humans retreat. They saw the trade ships stop. They saw the radio chatter die down until Earth became a silent sphere of blue and white. The High Exarch laughed in the Grand Council. He mocked the cowardice of the Terrans. He used them as an example to other subject races. Look at the humans, he would say. We burned one of their fingers, and they cut off their own hand to hide from us. The ascendancy grew fat and complacent. They forgot about the monkeys on the edge of the spiral arm. They focused on trade wars, on art, on the decadent pleasures of a galaxy-spanning civilization. They built Dyson swarms to harvest energy. They terraformed garden worlds. They believed themselves to be the apex of evolution, the masters of the physical universe. 30 years after the burning of Harvest Prime, the first anomaly occurred. It happened in the fringe system of Cathar. It was a mining system, unimportant politically but vital for its heavy metals. The system had a yellow dwarf star, stable and bright. At 0800 Galactic Standard Time, the Cathar star vanished. It did not explode. It did not collapse into a black hole. It did not go supernova. It simply ceased to emit light. The sensors of the mining station screamed errors. Gravity remained. The mass was there. The planet stayed in orbit. But the fusion reaction that had sustained the star for billions of years had been instantly, violently arrested. The sky went black. The solar winds stopped. The planet, stripped of its heat source, began to freeze within hours. Panic erupted on the mining colonies. They called for help, claiming the gods had blinded the eye of the universe. The Ascendancy sent a science fleet. They arrived to find a ghost system. The star was there, but it was a cold, dark sphere of iron and compressed hydrogen. It was as if something had reached inside the star and switched off the laws of physics. The scientists were baffled. They spoke of vacuum decay, of quantum tunneling events, of impossible statistical anomalies. They quarantined the system, labeled it a freak cosmic accident, and buried the report. It was frightening, yes, but the universe was vast and strange. 6 months later, it happened again. This time, it was the Balor system, a trade hub, 3 habitable worlds, 12 billion Zygnar citizens. In the middle of the day, the sun blinked out. 1 second, noon. The next, midnight. the temperature plummeted. The atmosphere of the tropical worlds began to snow oxygen. The panicked evacuation fleets were launched in the dark, colliding with one another in the confusion. The distress signals were frantic, incoherent. They spoke of a shadow that moved faster than light. They spoke of the cold. This time, the High Exarch Vrak could not ignore it. He summoned the council. The best minds of the Empire were gathered in the Great Hall of Light. Holograms of the darkened stars floated above them. Fear was a scent that the Zygnar could smell, and the room reeked of it. "What is doing this?" Vrak demanded, slamming his fist onto the podium. "Is it a weapon? Is it a natural disaster? It is impossible," the chief scientist stammered, his antennae twitching nervously. "To extinguish a star requires more energy than the star itself produces in a lifetime. It defies the laws of thermodynamics. It is not entropy, it is theft. Something is stealing the fusion." "Theft," Vrak roared. "Who has the power to steal a star?" There was silence. Then a junior intelligence officer stepped forward. He pulled up a grainy image from a long-range sensor buoy near the Balor system, recorded seconds before the darkness fell. "We found a thermal signature," the officer said quietly. It was faint, almost invisible against the background radiation, but it was there. The hologram zoomed in. It showed a shape. It was not a ship in the traditional sense. It was a needle, a distinct, jagged sliver of matte black material, thousands of kilometers long but only a few meters wide. It sat at the pole of the star. "We analyzed the trajectory," the officer continued. "It did not come from hyperspace. It came from real space. It has been traveling for decades at sublight speeds, drifting in the dark, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Vrak asked. The officer hesitated. "We traced its vector back. It originated from the Orion Arm." The room went deadly silent. The Orion Arm, the territory of the cowards, the territory of the silence. "Terror," Vrak whispered. Laughter bubbled up in his throat, but it sounded hysterical. "The monkeys? You think the monkeys did this? We burned them. They have kinetic slugs and chemical rockets. They cannot extinguish a sun. We sent a probe to the Sol system, my lord," the officer said. "It arrived an hour ago." "Show me," Vrak commanded. The hologram changed. It showed the Sol system, but it was wrong. The Earth was there, Mars was there, but the sun was encased. "A Dyson sphere?" a counselor asked. "No," the scientist whispered in horror. "Look closely. The structure around the human sun was not collecting energy. It was a cage. A lattice of dark energy emitters pointed inward. The humans had not built a sphere to harvest their sun. They had built a training ground. They had practiced. They didn't hide because they were afraid," the scientist realized, his voice trembling. "They hid because they were working." The realization hit the High Exarch like a physical blow. The silence of 30 years, the lack of retaliation. They weren't building a fleet of ships to fight the Zygnar navy. They realized they couldn't win a conventional war. The Zygnar had millions of ships, better shields, faster engines, so the humans decided not to fight a war at all. They decided to change the board. "They weaponized stellar physics," Vrak muttered. A priority alert flashed on the main screen. "System failure detected in the Antares sector. Star 89 Gamma has gone dark." Another alert. "System failure in the Vulcanes sector. Star 12 Alpha has gone dark." They were not coming, they were already here. The needles, the star killers. They had been launched decades ago, drifting silently through the void, programmed with coordinates, waiting for the timer to reach 0. "Contact them," Vrak screamed. "Open a channel to Earth." The communications officer scrambled. It took minutes to punch the signal through the interference of the dying stars. Finally, a connection was made. The main screen flickered. There was no throne room, no Grand Admiral in a uniform covered in medals. The image was of a woman sitting in a simple chair, wearing a gray jumpsuit. She looked old. Her face was lined with the stress of decades. Behind her was a window showing the caged son of Sol, a dim ember under the control of humanity's machinery. "This is High Exarch Vrak of the Zygnar Ascendancy," Vrak bellowed, trying to maintain his authority. "You are committing acts of galactic terrorism. You are violating the laws of sentient life." The woman looked at him. She did not blink. Her eyes were cold, dead things. "I am Director Hale of the Aegis Project," she said. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "Stop this madness," Vrak demanded. "We will negotiate. We will offer reparations for the colony. We will give you technology. We will give you worlds. Just turn them back on, turn them back on," Hale repeated. "You misunderstand the technology, Exarch. We aren't masking the stars. We are injecting a strange elite catalyst into the core. The fusion reaction is poisoned. The stars aren't hidden, they are dead. There is no on switch." A collective gasp went through the council chamber. "Why?" Vrak whispered, horror finally penetrating his arrogance. "Why would you do this? You are killing trillions, civilians, innocents." "Harvest Prime," Hale said. "That was one colony." Vrak shrieked. "One rock? You are destroying a civilization for one rock." 3,422,908 people, Hale recited. "That was the population. We listened to them die, Exarch. We heard the recordings. You didn't just kill them. You laughed. You called us a mold. You said we were insignificant. We were wrong." Vrak pleaded. "We admit we were wrong." "Yes, you were," Hale agreed. "You calculated that we would respond with a fleet. You calculated shield variances and hull strengths. You prepared for a battle of resources. But we are humans. We don't fight fair when we are backed into a corner. We don't try to beat your shields. We take away the light that allows you to see the shield." The lights in the council chamber flickered. The power grid on the Zygnar homeworld was fluctuating. "Your homeworld stars, Zygnar Prime," Hale said, glancing at a datapad. "The needle arrived 4 minutes ago. It has just penetrated the photosphere." "No," Vrak gasped. "You have about 8 minutes of sunlight left," Hale said calmly. "I suggest you look outside. It's quite a view." Vrak ran to the great viewing window. The sun of Zygnar Prime was a brilliant, golden orb, the source of all their life, their religion, their power. It hung in the sky, eternal and proud. Then the color changed. It shifted from gold to red, from red to a dull, sickly brown. The shadows on the ground lengthened instantly. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees in seconds. The sky turned a deep, horrific indigo. The sun did not explode. It simply suffocated. The light faded like a dimmer switch being pulled down by a ghostly hand. The golden age of the Zygnar Empire ended not with a bang, but with a sunset that never led to a sunrise. "You are monsters," Vrak screamed at the screen. "You are demons. We are what you made us," Hale replied. "You wanted the dark. You wanted to erase us. We are just returning the favor. We aren't invading, Exarch. We aren't landing troops. We don't want your worlds. They are cold and dead now anyway. We just want you to sit in the dark and think about what you did." The screen cut to black. On the homeworld, the panic began. But it was a slow panic. The ships couldn't leave. The sudden gravitational shifts of the dying stars had thrown the hyperspace lanes into chaos. Navigation was impossible. The Zygnar were trapped in their own systems, huddled around geothermal vents and burning their art and their history to stay warm. Humanity did not fire a single shot. They did not launch a single missile. They simply sat in the Sol system, behind their cage, and watched the galaxy go dark, one star at a time. Over the next year, 40% of the Zygnar stars were extinguished. The Empire collapsed. Warlords fought over the remaining sunlit systems, destroying each other in the process. The great fleets ran out of fuel. The Dyson swarms froze. The garden worlds turned into ice tombs. Years later, a scavenger vessel from a neutral species entered the Zygnar sector. They found a tomb of ice. They found the frozen corpse of High Exarch Vrak, sitting on his throne, staring out at a sky that had no stars. The scavenger captain looked at the logs. He saw the message from Terra. He saw the history of Harvest Prime. He turned to his crew. "Mark this sector as forbidden," the captain said, his voice hushed. "Why, Captain?" a crewmate asked. "Is there radiation?" "No," the captain said, looking at the black void where a galaxy-spanning empire used to be. "There are humans." And with that, the ship turned around, engaging its engines at maximum power, desperate to get back to the light, desperate to get away from the species that had decided that if they could not have peace, then no one would have light. The legend of the dark sector spread. Every species in the galaxy learned the new law of physics, one that was not written in math, but in blood. Do not touch the humans. For while other races fight for planets, and some fight for resources, humanity fights for the ending of the story. And they do not care if they have to write it in the dark. Somewhere, in the warmth of the caged Sol, Director Hale sat in a garden. The war was over. The silence had returned. But this time, it was a silence they controlled. She looked up at the artificial light of the solar shields. "It's done," she whispered to the ghosts of Harvest Prime, and the ghosts finally slept. The galaxy was a darker place, yes, but it was a safer place, because now everyone knew. You can burn a human colony, you can glass their worlds, but if you do, you better make sure you kill them all, because if you leave even one alive, they will find a way to put out the sun.